Hello there. Good evening, everyone. This is Dari on WorldStreams Radio. Thank you to our listeners from all over the world for joining us tonight. If you'd like to learn more about WorldStreams Radio, visit our website at worldstreams.org. Our guest tonight is David Bollier. David Bollier is an independent policy strategist, journalist, activist, and consultant with an evolving public interest portfolio. His work focuses on a few key concerns: claiming the commons, understanding how digital technologies are changing democratic culture, fighting the excesses of intellectual property law, fortifying consumer rights, and promoting citizen action. He's the editor of onthecommons.org, which is a leading source of news and commentary about commons-based policy, activism, and politics. David's third book, Viral Spiral: How the Commoners Built a Digital Republic of Their Own, was published in January 2009. It's about the rise of free and open source software, Creative Commons licenses, and the content commons they make possible, also the internationalization of free culture and the sharing economy. And we're really happy to have him with us tonight. Hi there, Saeed. Hello and welcome, David. Thank you for being with us.
It's great to be with you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and hello to our listeners from around the world. David, I'd like to start with a question about the definition of commons. What does it mean?
Well, most people think if you're a consumer, you're oriented towards the marketplace, and if you're a citizen, you're focused on government policies and politics. But if you're a commoner, you're essentially engaged with other people in similar circumstances to manage a shared resource. And on the Internet, this can mean anything from the encyclopedia entries that Wikipedians prepare, or if you're a software programmer, the shared body of code that you create, like for Linux, the open source computer operating system, or any number of information resources or music or photos that you prepare. And so the commoners are basically a different way of creating valuable stuff without doing it through the market or through government.
So the difference between a commoner, why wouldn't it be the same for, say, somebody who reads a newspaper?
Well, people who read newspapers are not participating in creating their own resource. They're buying it, and it's a different relationship, both with the creator of the material as well as to other people who are helping to manage that resource. So, for example, the people who create Wikipedia have a whole system of governance and ways to settle disputes, and to accept new material into their body of the encyclopedia. So it's sort of a different mode of production.
So there is a very intricate relationship here between what you referred to as the digital republic and the people who are active participants in it.
Well, I name it as the digital republic because I think that on the Internet there's a whole culture that's growing up of people that are somewhat, you might say, sovereign, in the sense that you can be an individual and create a world-breaking software program like, say, BitTorrent, and you're just an individual. You don't have a corporate apparatus. You don't have a marketing budget. You don't have venture capitalists. They might come in later. But people can be in the blogosphere. They can start any sort of collaborative project that may or may not grow into a business. And so there's a great range of autonomy that people have, and then they can band together to influence government more directly without having to go through political parties or the mainstream corporate media to be heard. So this is kind of a dramatically new cultural phenomena in history.
So it is, in other words, the reverse of what we've known as mass media, where information is directed at the masses. Here it is the opposite.
Yes,
shared by the masses.
That's absolutely true, but at the same time, anybody who wants to begin something needs to get the consent and cooperation of other people. And that often occurs, and that's indeed what happens virally when it catches on like an infectious phenomena. It just takes off. And this is, I think, having profound implications for established centralized institutions, because the network of people who come together can often have superior knowledge than centralized institutions, and can often have greater moral legitimacy for their cause than institutions that may or may not be connected to constituencies. And so you have the spectacle of governments, the State Department, perhaps not being as informed or having as much on-the-ground knowledge as networks of people who are connected and cooperating through the Internet.
Let's take the case of Iran, the election that took place a couple of weeks ago, and how much of a role did very much the digital age has played in actually informing people from the outside. And also there was a story that Twitter wanted to upgrade one of its systems, and actually they had to actually delay that upgrade in order to give people from Iran a chance to have access to this information. How important is that in what you're writing about?
Well, the story still hasn't finished, of course, there, and the government does have the upper hand in many respects for controlling the flow of bottom-up information. But that said, the whole story illustrates how groups of individuals can create their own public platform and thereby become a political force in their own right. Prior to that, you had to be a major business person or government entity to be able to command that kind of public attention and resources. So it's a radically empowering tool. At the same time, we see how vulnerable it is, because oftentimes it is governments that control the infrastructure for a lot of the Internet. And we see it even domestically in the United States with attempts by cable companies and telephone companies to control access to the Internet. And this is what the so-called net neutrality debate is all about, whether those companies should be able to control it. So you do have this radically populist dimension to the Internet that established governments are still trying to figure out.
So established governments really are powerful, but at the same time powerless. Would it be fair to say that?
Maybe not powerless, but there's a new dimension to their political behavior. If you're going to have moral and social legitimacy, you now have to earn it through these new kinds of media platforms, the open ones that you don't control, that are not centralized, that don't have choke points that you can control. And so this creates, things are in play much more, and I think it's a case study, I think, of how Barack Obama used the bottom-up viral phenomena to propel his candidacy, both in terms of fundraising, but also in terms of circulating support and letting his campaign supporters initiate their own things, whereas in years past, it had to be the campaign that controlled everything. So Obama is sort of on the cusp of it, but it's also safe to say that as president, he hasn't governed under those same principles. He's been a more traditional president in that respect. So it's a very interesting time of how politics and culture are changing as these new